Hello there guys, welcome back to FATBOSS TV. Today we're looking at the boss you're likely to do either around 6th or 7th in the instance, which is Drest'agath.
So this encounter is all about dealing with waves of appendages, and it was one of the more difficult bosses we felt while testing it on PTR, especially in comparison to all the other bosses up until this point in the instance. There's a fair amount to go over, so let's jump straight in.
So the boss sits stationary in the middle of the room, and whilst he can be damaged, he's constantly healing himself for millions every 5 seconds. The only way that you can kill him is by damaging him when you're buffed, as that damage cannot be healed, but we'll get to this in a moment. You'll need one tank to permanently be on the boss, otherwise he'll just drag random players towards him and stun them. Whilst tanking him, you will be debuffed with Volatile Seed. This deals moderate ticking damage for 10 seconds before it explodes, dealing damage to all players and appendages within the targeting circle, and also increasing the damage they take by 60% for 15 seconds. You want to try and hit the adds with this and perform the tank swap at the same time, whilst the raid moves from you so they're not also hit. Now the boss will be gaining agony throughout the fight, and at 100% he'll cast Throes of Agony. This deals moderate raid-wide damage over 10 seconds, and you'll want a healing cooldown each time that this is cast. Now the boss also has 3 other abilities, but each one is shared by a single appendage add, so let's go through these adds and then talk about the abilities as we get to them.
The Eye of Drest'agath will cast Mind Flay on random players. This deals a small amount of damage and slows them. They also cast Errant Blast when the boss casts his throws. This causes multiple zones to spawn throughout the room, and they deal a large amount of shadow damage to anyone within them. They spawn randomly and you have plenty of time to move from them, so just make sure you do. When the boss casts Void Glare, all of the eyes in the room will also cast it at the exact same time. This is a beam targeted at a random player that deals a massive amount of damage to any one hit. You have plenty of time to see which direction it is being targeted as it's being cast, giving you enough time to move. As for the Tentacle of Desst'agaf, they have a cloud around them that creates a line of sight block, and inside the cloud you take moderate ticking damage. We had our melee focus this tentacle whenever it was up and had at least one healer with inside the cloud just to keep them healthy. This tentacle casts Crushing Slam, dealing moderate shadow damage to all players in the slam zone. This appeared to attack the player with the highest threat, but as your tanks will probably be on the boss or dealing with a debuff, you're just going to need to move from the zone as soon as it spawns. When the boss casts Throes of Agony, the tentacle will cast Reality Tear. This sends a moving hole across the room for 9 seconds, dealing moderate damage to anyone that's hit. Just make sure you avoid it. Now when the boss casts Entropic Crash, the tentacles do too. This deals a massive burst of damage from the mobs that falls off with distance, so the moment it's cast, just make sure you move away. And the last appendage to mention is the Maw of Desst'agaf. This ad will apply stacks of Mutterings of Betrayal to all targets within 10 yards of it, applying a healing absorption shield that if it ever reaches 4 stacks, will make the player hostile to the rest of the raid. This essentially prevents melee from attacking the Maw for very long or at all. The ability that he uses most is Acid Splash. This deals a burst of damage to a player and all players within 4 yards of that target, so it's important that you stay relatively spread when Maws are active. When Throes of Agony is cast, the Maws will cast Spine Eruption. This spawns a series of rings around the mob, very similar to how the FATBOSS circles work. Getting hit by one of these applies a really nasty 9-second dot, so you've just got to make sure you stand clear from them. When the boss casts Mutterings of Insanity, the Maw will also cast this. This slows a random player until they can no longer move over 5 seconds. They then explode, dealing a large amount of damage to all players within the targeting zone, and stun themselves and anyone else hit. This stun, however, can be dispelled. So when these come in, you'll want to make sure that you move away from the raid, and everyone who isn't affected needs to make sure they move away from you. And that's all the abilities, but we still haven't cleared up how to kill the boss.
Yeah, probably a bit important. Yeah, so when the adds die, they will drop Void-infused Ichor Orbs. Running into one of these buffs you for 30 seconds, allowing you to actually do permanent damage to the boss that he cannot heal back. After that 30-second window, you will get a debuff preventing you from using a patch again for an entire minute. Now the appendage waves spawn on a timer, and the patches do not last forever. So for Heroic at least, we feel that the best strategy will be that you clear a wave of adds trying to kill them at roughly the same time, then you all pick up some patches, nuke the boss for 30 seconds or for as long as possible until a next wave spawns, and then you just repeat. Now the waves do seem preset, and each wave has a different combination of adds to deal with. To add, when one of the adds die, it will give the boss agony, so it's hard to say what kill order is best whilst dealing with the adds, as really you can min-max the hell out of this fight. And once you hit Mythic, this is probably something that you'll need to do. For normal and Heroic, our advice would be, for melee, go and focus on the tentacles, ranged focus on the Maws, and once you've killed them, you'll then want to swap to the eyes. That, for most if not every wave, should be enough for you to get your first kill. As for the Mythic version of the fight, we unfortunately didn't see it for ourselves, but just to give you a small insight to how mad it's going to be, when one of the adds die, all adds of that same type will use their special ability all at the same time. So Eyes, they'll all cast Errant Blast, Tentacles will send out loads of Reality Tears, and Maws will be doing loads of Spines of Eruption. Which is mad because at least on Heroic you can have 3 of the same ad in a single wave, which isn't a problem usually on Heroic because at least 1 or 2 of them is killed before they cast, whereas on Mythic it sounds like that won't be the case at all. We're guessing that you're probably going to want to split damage in such a way per wave that they have to die more or less all at the same time. But at the same time, it is avoidable damage, so technically you could have a Zerg strat and avoid all of the spells that are thrown at you. But anyway, that's the fight. What do we think?
So it's a very cool fight, and I'm hoping that Mythic is going to be that difficult, where you're forced to work out the fight on a wave-by-wave basis, making decisions based on how much agony the boss has and which ads you want to cast and which ones you don't when Throes of Agony is cast. But aside from Mythic, it's another fight in the instance where, again, everyone has a job to do, which is great. And I'm sure this fight might even become a favourite for quite a few raiders. It definitely has that potential.
The only thing I would say maybe in a negative light for this fight is that sometimes it can feel a little bit samey, especially if you're melee DPS, because it's literally go to a tentacle, dodge the slams, kill it. Okay, cool. Kill the boss for a little while, go to a tentacle, dodge the slams, kill it. You know, it's kind of a little bit repetitive.
At the same time, you got beams.
Yeah, I suppose.
You got the fucking circles you need to move from.
Yeah, there's little bits and bobs that can come your way, but it feels like you're kind of doing phase 1 of Cahoon, but for like 8 minutes, you know? Well, however long the fight lasts, we didn't actually manage to kill this fight. One thing that we actually struggled to do was work out when we should actually do boss damage. When should we pick up the orbs and actually deal damage to the boss? That's something that we couldn't really work out all that much. So yeah, at least that's going to be an interesting thing to work out once we get the boss to live servers.
But that's all we got time for. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, then you know what to do. And if you've got the time, I definitely recommend go checking out our guide over on Wowhead. That will be updated whenever anything is changed on live servers, and will give you a far better understanding of how the fight works. So go and have a look at that. And we shall see you all in the next one.
Thanks for watching.